Well, hi everyone. Really great to be here. Today we're talking about new video hardware technologies and the incredible creative outputs which they make possible. So we're going to talk a bit about drone videos, a bit about 360-degree videos, and then about the ecosystems which surround them. And it really is amazing the rate of change and innovation which we're seeing in this space at the moment. You know, if you go back just 4 or 5 years ago, these industries literally didn't exist. And today they're billion-dollar industries. And the biggest, smartest businesses in the world are focusing a lot of their time and energy on succeeding in this space. So for some context, Elisha and I are from MOFILM. We work with thousands of filmmakers around the world on video production projects, branded video production projects. And in speaking with them, we get a really good idea of what's interesting and what's new. And what's for certain is that drone videos and 360-degree videos are a really big part of the consciousness of this filmmaker community at the moment. And so we've done a number of projects with them over the last couple of years. And I'd like to start today by showing a quick video which we did for Emirates Airlines, which we did across 15 different countries. It was 20 different tourist destinations for Emirates and Boeing. So if we could start by playing that video, please. So really interesting video. If we went back 3 years ago, pretty much the only way you could make that would be with helicopters. And we started that project about a year ago. And if we started it today, pretty much all of the technology we used would be different. And interestingly, the vast majority of the drones we used were in fact DJI. So I think that's a great way to tee up the introduction of the other two people up here with me today. So Elisha Greenwell works with me at MOFILM and is the strategy director for MOFILM. Welcome, Elisha.
Hi.
And Ferdinand is the creative director of DJI in Europe. And you know, I was chatting with Ferdinand yesterday, and he was explaining the incredible sort of path which brought him to the job he does today. And I thought perhaps a great place for us to start, Ferdinand, would be to tell that story.
So yeah, I was always keen in creating using technology, and I studied IT. I worked as a professional photographer, and in my youth, I always loved flying RC helicopters. So in the end, everything kind of merged together with the drone technology. You can be creative. It's a very complex IT-related product, and it's a lot of fun to fly drones as well. So that's how I came into the industry and why I love my job and what I'm doing.
Awesome. So I guess as a super passionate drone pilot yourself and videographer, you know, what are the sort of things which are happening today which, in your mind, are most exciting in this space?
So at DJI, we are always keen in kind of breaking the boundaries and empowering people being creative. And I think this is the most exciting thing about drones, because they are boosting the creativity of people. They enable people to get angles and perspectives that haven't been able before, and they kind of fill the gap between a ground camera and a helicopter attached camera, and they also make this technology and those angles accessible and affordable to everybody. So be it a small video production, or even like a hobbyist, or a multi-million Hollywood movie production, everybody can use this technology, can access this technology, and kind of benefits from this new technology.
Okay. So obviously at MOFILM we're investing a lot of energy in trying to reduce the cost of production while maintaining quality. if a sort of entrepreneurial startup video production company wanted to get into the drone space, what sort of cost are they looking at to be able to include great aerial videos in their productions?
So actually, you can get a professional tool. I brought a DJI Phantom 4 with me, which is standing on a small table here. And actually, the DJI Phantom 4 series starts even below $1,000. This one is $1,399 US. But those tools are already capable of capturing professional imagery and are actually used for a lot of video productions all around the globe.
Okay. So Elisha, perhaps a good place to start would be to explain how you came to join MOFILM and your sort of journey to get there.
I started in this sort of classic agency world, big agencies doing, incredible work. But I think over time, I started to get a bit bored with the same types of briefs and the same group of creatives. Although they were world class, you find yourself briefing the same people over and over on similar projects. And I was inspired by MOFILM's ability to tap into talent around the world. And that talent is as diverse as they come, not just in the kind of people they are, but their eye for creativity and the kind of technology they're using. Easily, our filmmakers, like a lot of people, have gotten interested in both the drone and the 360 space. And so not just demands from our clients, but demands from our filmmakers, even more than that, is how do we help become the liaison to help our brands understand how to work with filmmakers who are interested in 360 and vice versa, and really create empathy with the brands. And it isn't always drone work and 360 work. It seems like you just launch it in the air and magic happens, or you just put the 360 in the middle of the room and all of a sudden you have this amazing story. And there's a lot of technical and also storytelling difficulties in that. And so we've tried really hard to, like I said, bridge that gap so that we can create really great stuff and everyone's happy with the process as well.
Okay, and if I was to ask sort of what's most exciting to you about the sort of world of 360-degree video at the moment, what sort of things spring to mind?
Well, I kind of think what you were saying about ubiquity, I think a lot of our filmmakers, when you ask them about drone and 360, they describe it as new technology, and they used to think that that was for the tech folks, that was for the developers, the guys in cubes, and they're storytellers, they're not tech people. But quickly, these become devices that everyone can access, and not just from a consumer standpoint. Samsung's giving away gears with Galaxy at this point. Cardboard is like $1. So now everyone can have them, and they can have them easily to use. And so that's exciting to just think of the way when tech moves from this niche space to something everybody has, what that really does, and especially from a place like MOFILM, where our filmmakers are often young, up and coming, don't have huge budgets, don't have big productions, and for them to be able to tell their stories in a really unique way is fun. Even more so than that, I think, is the idea of empathy. So filmmaking has always been about empathy, and in the past it's been about how do you do close-ups, how do you sort of put yourself in the eye of that person, right, so that you can feel what they're going through. And I think 360 creates this incredible depth and empathy because you're not just looking at somebody else's story through the eyes of the director, but you're in that story. Often you are the character and the camera is the character. And so how do you create this world where you don't just think, this is what it'd be like to be this person, but you actually feel it and see it and experience with all four senses.
Awesome. So Ferdinand, back to you. I guess an interesting sort of part of this world is as you sort of get into these new technologies, there's so many new things you have to think about, and you really have to master a completely new discipline. What sort of things do you think are most important to think about, and how complex is it to get started in this space?
So actually, as I said, DJI made it very accessible, very easy to start with, and that's how DJI became so popular, because they kind of made complex technology very easy to use. You can just get it out of the box, charge the battery, attach your phone, and you can start flying. So it's very easy, very intuitive. The DJI Go app guides you through the steps, and there's tutorials. So this thing is actually it's pretty easy to get it up in the air. And then you can train, you get better, you get your shots, you learn. But actually there's a lot of technology and smart functionality built in those small drones already. You have assistance, like the DJI Phantom 4 offers obstacle avoidance system, so it actually sees the world in front of it and builds a three-dimensional map, and if it sees an obstacle, it kind of actually stops or can even find a way around it. You can mark and track an object, and it will autonomously follow that object. So those are features which are now possible with the latest technology that enable everybody to get those cinematic shots, and you don't even have to be an expert pilot to get those shots. Actually, those features can produce shots that even most experienced pilots couldn't do because technology is advancing so fast. So it really makes it so much easier, and yeah, pretty much everybody can do it now.
Awesome. So one of the things I heard you speak about there is this follow functionality. I remember, if you go back 2 years ago, Kickstarter was awash with people who had created ways to follow you if you were on your mountain bike or downhill skiing or something. So we were chatting about this yesterday. I mean, it blows my mind what you can actually do now with this one sitting in front of us. Do you want to talk through like how that works? I mean, originally I remember it was all about the GPS, and now it's not.
Yeah, so as you said, there were like a bunch of Kickstarter projects. Pretty much everybody failed, unfortunately. I think that the Phantom 4 is the first drone which actually has a built-in tracking system that works. And the reason for that is that it's not solely based on a GPS tracking device you attach to something. It actually uses a vision system. So it uses the information it gets from the camera and recognizes patterns. So you mark the subject you want to track on your smart device. You draw a circle on it or tap on it, and then it actually follows this object, and it does it visually. So you don't even have to attach a GPS tag on that subject. So you can, if we go outdoors, I can just tap on you, and it will follow you without you wearing anything. And as you move, the camera actually learns the different patterns and the different angles of you. And it kind of is self-learning and improving the process of tracking you. And this is something very new, and it actually works up to very high speeds. And this is kind of the new technology which will be see in the future even more evolving and helping people to get those shots.
An awesome example you spoke to me yesterday about was sort of you can do that at the same time as circling someone. So you can take someone doing downhill skiing, the drone captures the person, and then it can sort of circle them, but stay focused on the person.
Yes, so this is a perfect example. Even the most experienced pilots would have like a hard time to fly a perfect circle around a moving object while holding the camera still at the subject without any help. So with this active track technology, it actually makes it pretty easy. So I was in Africa, we did a safari, and there was a zebra walking, and we flew a perfect circle around the walking zebra. And I just did it myself without a second operator, operating the camera. And this is something which, I mean, I worked in the movie industry, did drone cinematography for 3 years, and these were shots we couldn't achieve even with a 2-operator setup. Now it makes it very easy to get those shots.
Wow, so we've actually got some examples here today, right? I was wondering if we could just play the next video we have lined up. And if we could play the next one as well, please. Could we play the next video? Ferdinand, do you want to talk about this one? Yeah.
Until we Yeah, so both short videos actually kind of show that the drones enable us to get perspectives on events or sports which were just not possible before. So the first video was from the Ironman marathon in Frankfurt, actually. So we had the chance to film it with a drone, and people were just blown away by the possibility to kind of film this start in the water with a drone, like flying flat over the water and getting those angles that were never possible before. So it went viral because the people were like, wow, we never saw that perspective. You couldn't do it with a helicopter, you couldn't do it with a ground camera. So that was very successful. And actually the second video, that's something we do. We film the WRC, we film all WRC events this year with DJI drones. And they as well offer us opportunities to kind of fill the gap between the ground camera and the helicopter. So you saw, we started very high at the car, we saw the car coming around the corner, and then at that hairpin we were really, really close. You even saw the mud like spraying into the camera of the drone, and then we got high again, and that's something which is impossible with every other camera technology. So, and this is kind of a perfect showcase what you can do with the latest drone technology nowadays.
Awesome. Was that captured with the Phantom 4?
Both were captured with the Inspire 1, so that's the drone one step bigger than the Phantom 4, but actually both could have been captured with the Phantom 4 as well.
Okay. So Elisha, I guess the 360-degree space is super interesting and definitely as different from sort of normal filmmaking as you can get to. And yeah, just wondering what your sort of thinking is around the considerations filmmakers, marketers, brands need to think about in this space.
Well, I think just to kind of jump off of what Ferdinand was saying, the cool thing about drones is that like a traditional camera, you can control the perspective, right? So, and even more so as they get more advanced and can come lower and closer in. The hardest part about creating 360 film is controlling the narrative. So if you're used to creating a story with classic storyboards, 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, all of a sudden you have no idea where the person's eye is gonna be, right? So you can't say, and then they look here and then the guy jumps and then he gets on a horse and he goes away, because I might not look at that horse, I might look at the thing behind you. And so the approach to creating stories is completely different. You're not gonna have storyboards that are chunks, you're gonna actually have a circle like 360 and have to consider every single degree. And so it's really challenging. As exciting as 360 and drone work is for filmmakers, it's also really challenging. If you're a really good filmmaker, you're used to telling really strong, kind of focused stories, and then all of a sudden you have this whole landscape where your story has to exist, and just planning that out is really, really challenging, and just asking, where do I want people's attention to go, and will they actually go there? And so you have to start thinking about it's almost, instead of one shot, it's 360 pieces of shot, right? It's each angle. So if you think about, oh, there's a squirrel over there and a bird over here, but I want you to look at the horse, it's like, how do you actually get somebody to do that? And so you have to think about the total experience you're creating. You're creating a world versus a controlled scene, if that makes any sense. And so when we work with filmmakers, you know, we've started briefing completely different and started showing treatments completely different, because they're creating this immersive world. They're not creating this kind of focused, their dream point of view in a situation.
Okay, and who would you think are sort of the best suited people to be making this type of work? Is it someone who's really good at video? Like, is the best director the best person, or is it? Yeah, I guess sort of. Yeah. Who do you see as the best people in the space?
You know, it's challenging. We found this thing emerging within the MOFILM community, which is actually always exists, but is even more true with 360. And they call themselves predators. And the reason they call themselves predators is because they're sort of part producer, part director, part editor, part actor, which I know doesn't really spell out predator, but it's a cool thought, because they have to be involved in every piece of the process. And so, like I said, if you're creating this total environment, you very much become a producer, because you can't just go say, I'm gonna build a kitchen right here, and that's the only thing we're gonna shoot. All of a sudden, what's behind the kitchen, what's in front of the kitchen? The camera's everywhere. Where do the people that aren't on scene stand? And so they very much become producers, because I think the logistics of the environment they're creating, in some ways you can't fake a world anymore. You have to create that world from top to bottom. And that's also how you get all of those really fancy rigs everybody's creating that are like $60,000 to rent a day, because they're trying to create something that's unique to that space that can capture every detail and every sort of angle that they need. In some ways they're directors, right? Because they're understanding the shot and they're trying to create the story that they hope that you go to, and so they're kind of classic directors. But also dealing with clients is an interesting thing when you think about 360. So if any of you guys are kind of in the filmmaking business, you know that you have the film, you have the thing you're shooting, and then you have the food and the clients and the people talking in the back. Those people are now in the shot. So where do they go, right? You used to tell your client, like, could you just go over there and stop butting in? But now, no, literally go to the other room because you can't be in this space. This is all the shot. And so just thinking about little things like that of you have no idea where someone's eye is going to be. And so everything around you is part of the scene that you're creating. And you can tell them maybe the sound's over here, go over here, but you have to pay attention what's over in the 90 degrees or behind you as well. And then they're part editors, right? Because a lot of times these cameras, they're in the middle of the action, and so in some ways you don't think about the camera as a camera, you think about it as a character in the film. And so the camera is in the center and it's capturing everything, and you have to be able to think, when I put this together, when I stitch this together, what shots do I really want people to have access to? And not all cameras capture full 360, a lot of them are in 240, and so what am I going to put in that space and how am I going to stitch that together?
So what is stitching?
So stitching is exactly how it sounds. If you aren't able to capture full 360, you have to capture two 180s or 240 and then sort of the difference, and then be able to put those together. So it's the challenge in it is, the analogy I like to use is when you use do a panoramic picture on your iPhone or any phone and you go like this, and you know when you move your finger or your hand just a little bit and the person's face is all crooked. Imagine that happening but a moving picture, and then imagine having to stitch that back together. So it isn't just sound and just literally characters, but the nuances in people's faces, and if you're doing something like a wave, how the wave flows and how you actually match cut those things is really, really challenging in 360. And you're also thinking about a circular environment, and so what happens in a circular environment is people tend to get elongated and their heads get really big, and so having the right perspective, if you don't capture it the first time, how do you compress it and how do you pull other imagery in to make that seem like a seamless environment? Because again, it isn't one shot, cut to, one shot, cut to, it's one continuous thing. And to be able to do that seamlessly is actually pretty challenging. And so there's been quite a few companies who have emerged and all they do is stitching, right? They become specialists in it, which sounds like a very boring job and a very challenging job, but it's necessary until the equipment is able to capture in that one continuous, beautiful shot.
And one other thing you touched on there, which I think is super interesting, is the sound component of 360 degrees. So this is obviously feels like it's an unsolved problem, but what sort of is your view on the sort of sound space?
I think it's an unsolved problem. A lot of, you'll see some of the best 360 stuff doesn't depend on sound because you can't tell somebody where to hear, right? And so you have all this conflicting sound and you have some sounds are louder than others, and a lot of time the sound doesn't stay in the place you are. So for example, if we were under the ocean like this, there's a really great video on Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook page, and he's surfing, and it's a surfing video, and at one side you hear the birds, and on the other side you hear the ocean, but those sounds mix, and so even when you turn your eye, you still hear the thing over there. And so again, it's sort of back, how do you tell a story when I can't tell you what to consume, when I can't tell you where to go? So sound is a really, really tricky one because it's so overlapping. And in traditional film, you cut sound and focus on the narrative, the guy talking or the train coming or whatever it is. But when the whole world is your environment, how do you choose which things to emphasize?
So that's super interesting, this sort of idea of where people focus. And that feels like probably one of the trickiest parts of 360. What sort of things are in place to try and help, whether it's using a headset or looking at Facebook, sort of what sort of stuff is in place to help that sort of that problem?
Facebook, and I don't know when they introduced it, but they have this icon, which I think we'll show you a little bit later, a little icon on their 360 films where you click it and it takes you to a specific place within the world. And I think it's their attempt to help storytellers focus the audience. And it works really well when you have a single character. So for example, there's a video out there of Hamilton, the musical. And when you push that button, it takes you to the person singing within the choir, right? But if you're in the example like the ocean, you push it and it will just take you to the front of the film, which is where the camera is, which is the surfboard facing the surfer. And so you can use it in different ways, and that is potentially one solution, but I don't even know if there's a tried and true solution. I think what needs to happen is filmmakers just need to consider everywhere as part of their story, and how it adds and builds onto the story versus thinking about it as distracting from what they're really trying to say.
Okay, that makes sense. So Ferdinand, I guess one of the things you've been working on a lot lately is the live side of drones. I mean, it feels super interesting to me. It's like, where are there opportunities to still innovate with drones? And it feels like live video is a great one. Do you want to talk us through a bit of what you've been doing in that space, how that functionality works, and then maybe we could look at an example?
Sure. So yes, we talked. People just discover the opportunities and the freedom drones offer. So one thing that is very popular and upcoming, and I think it still hasn't reached the top yet, is doing live streaming with drones. So in the past years, I did a lot of live streaming projects, sports, music festivals, but there were like 4 events which kind of sticked out because of the just size and effort we put into, and those were in a partnership with ABC Good Morning America. So we kind of went around the globe and shot 4 pretty cool stories. So the first one took us to an active volcano in Iceland, where we used 2 drones to fly in the volcano into the crater, and no regular camera would be able to go there. The second took us to Vietnam, Son Dong Caves, the biggest caves in the world, discovered only in, I think, 2009. So we flew with the drones through the caves live in front of like 6 million people on TV, same with the volcano. And because of the huge success, we continued the series. Good Morning America brought us to Iceland again, where we flew down one of the biggest glaciers in Europe and in the world. So we followed the trail of ice climbers down this massive crevasse, this glacier, to show the effect of climate change, the melting of this glacier, and actually the drone technology, where you can literally position a camera freely in this 3-dimensional space, offered the opportunity to kind of climb down with the climber and see how the glacier is melting. And after that, we went to Africa and filmed a safari live, the first time with drones. So we had 2 drones in the air, we had 2 ground cameras. Yeah, and all those 4 projects worked out very well, very successful. So big success, and I can't wait to see the next project coming.
Okay, and the challenges of flying drones in, like, let's talk about a volcano, for example. And it's usually in Iceland, I guess the weather's not brilliant. What sort of challenges do you face there? The heat of a volcano, that sort of thing. I mean, is that sort of the type of thing which is solved today? Is it stuff you're working on?
Yeah, actually, it was like the best product testing we could do, all those 4 events. So, and weather is always a very challenging factor. And we were surprised how good the drone technology already deals with weather. So, the volcano was obviously very hot at the bottom, so we flew very close to the magma. We even melted the bottom part of one of our Inspire 1 drones, but we were able to get it back, so no worries. So we still have the drone with a melted bottom. In the caves, we had a lot of moisture, and so in the safari environment, you have a lot of dust. It's still not at the level where you can fly through dense rain, but I mean that wouldn't make sense if you film anyways, because you will get a lot of raindrops on the lens. But I have to say the technology is already very advanced, and we use those projects for DJI to kind of even make the technology better and better, and all those experience we get have influence in the next products we come up with.
Okay. Did you offer one of the drones to the lava gods?
No comment on that. But maybe we can have a look at the video. So,
okay, fantastic. Yeah. Could we play the next video?
So again, the video you guys are seeing is something that really no one has been able to do live here, being able to get inside a volcanic eruption.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So it's really interesting, right? Elisha was saying to me that there was a show specifically this morning on DJI about the fact that DJI is one of the few sort of leading technologies coming out of China at the moment, which are sort of poles ahead of other similar technologies. Yep. Do you perhaps just want to briefly talk us through the device there, what's in there, what's so special about it, and what's sort of changing the world in that space?
So actually, this is kind of the fourth iteration of the DJI Phantom series, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows this. It's kind of the iconic drone. So it may look pretty similar to the first DJI Phantom that was brought on the market, I think, two or 3 years ago already. But this iteration just is packed with new technology. Like I already mentioned, it has two front-facing cameras which act as a collision or obstacle avoidance system. So it builds a three-dimensional map. It doesn't only use a sonar system where it detects that there's maybe something. It kind of builds a map, so it also sees openings. It can find ways around obstacles. So this is something very new, innovative. We talked about the active track feature, which just uses the camera image. So this technology could actually be used on every camera in the future. It also has a lot of like evolving and technology. The motors get better, the battery get better. So actually the flight time now is 25 minutes. With the first Phantom 1, I was able to fly like 7 or 8 minutes to the maximum. So there's a lot of evolutionary development going on, but there are also a lot of new like innovative features coming up. And one of the features as well is, and that's something which is built in all the recent DJI drones, is like the integration of Facebook Live. So with the DJI Go app, you can actually live stream with a single click of a button your camera picture to your friends, to the world. So this is something completely new. And yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So Elisha, back to you. One of the things we've sort of been speaking about is this idea of the camera being an actor, or what role the camera plays and what role the actor plays in 360-degree video. And I know you've got an example, perhaps, which we could talk through.
Yeah, maybe I will play this example. And so I think a lot of things I've talked about, the idea of a predator and creating spaces and sort of camera as actor seems vague if you never created a 360 film or even experienced one. So let me try to live stream this and see what happens. Is it tracking? So you can see how as I move, right, it's moving. Do you want to hold this? So I think the first thing you think about when you see a film like this, which is just beautiful, I'm not a surfer, so I find this fascinating, if that's what it feels like. Is you ask yourself, where's the camera, right? So he must be holding it, or it's on the surfboard, but it kind of goes back to what's the role of the filmmaker, because the person holding that camera is so much of this, right? They have to be able to capture everything, they have to be steady, they have to be aware of what they're capturing so that when they get into the editing and stitching process, they are. But they also have to think of the camera as another sort of person within this film. When you think about the camera, or you think about who you are in this experience, you're not the surfer, because you can see the surfer, right? You're almost his friend on the front of his board or something like that. And so just seeing something like this really helps you understand why it's important to create this immense world. The ocean is kind of a perfect world, because as far as the eye can see, you're not going to run into something that you don't necessarily want in your picture. I think that's why you see a lot of desert 360 work, because the desert is very similar. But the minute you start coming into branded spaces or virtual spaces that you're sort of creating out of your imagination, the harder it gets. But this example is really great because you can go all around and really control it. And I can, back to the ubiquity thing, you know, this is just on Facebook. It's anybody can do it within their phone. The experience is actually so much greater on mobile, which I don't think a lot of people realize. A lot of people experience 360 on their desktop still, where they're pushing the arrow and moving around. But the cool thing about mobile is you actually move with it, and it makes you feel like you're within the action. And it's kind of back to what we started in the beginning about empathy. You know, I'm not a surfer, I don't know what this actually feels like, but to know what that wave coming over you, and there's so many things in this world that when you live in a certain environment, you don't know what the other environment is like. And you know, we can get political on this. It's causing a lot of kind of turmoil in this world, and if you can use this medium of storytelling to really put yourself in someone else's shoes, imagine the power that you can have, that can have.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we've obviously spoken about ubiquity quite a bit, and what sort of Facebook and YouTube being able to offer this technology really does for ubiquity. We thought we'd do a quick poll if anyone wants to. So I think one of the big things with both Facebook and YouTube, so in both cases you can use your phone to navigate the video you're watching, right? So you can hold your phone, you sort of point it in the direction of the video. And I think what's super surprising is how low the awareness is of the sort of public that this is possible. So we thought we'd do a quick poll. If anyone wants to stick their hand up who's actually tried this before and done it. Okay, so sort of like 20% of the audience. I mean, it's really fascinating that it's one of the most exciting technologies in the 360-degree space. It's available on your mobile device. If you follow Mark Zuckerberg, he posts a lot of videos in the space and definitely worth checking out and really interesting. So we wanted to end today. Ferdinand had an idea of doing a live stream. You know, these things, the larger the audience always has the higher likelihood of failure of a live demo, but we thought we'd try and live stream some of Ferdinand's friends in Germany on their Facebook pages into here. So essentially what we're going to be able to see is a drone flying somewhere in Germany.
Yeah, so I'll cue my friends in. Actually, I brought two friends. And I just talked about the Facebook Live integration we just realized at DJI with the drones. So actually there's Manuel and Carl now in Germany waiting to be queued in. I just told them already go. So they will now lift off their Inspire 1 and a DJI Phantom drone. And we will go to their Facebook profiles. I already opened them up here and here. This is Carl. So Carl will show us a perspective from Germany in a very rural area in a minute. And Hamburg, the city of Hamburg will be presented by Manuel. So they will fire up their Inspires. And you already see Manuel tested this yesterday. So you can still look at what he did yesterday. So I told him, please test everything so it works. So you can even play back what he did yesterday. And the cool thing is that you actually, once he's live, you can comment his videos, and you will actually see, if you're flying live, you will see the comments pop up. So I'll reload the page. So he's going live now from Hamburg, Germany. A very nice spot. So actually this is live now from Germany, Hamburg, Germany. And 8 people are watching it. So this is cool. I know that there are a lot of more people are watching it. I will tell him. Hold on. So looks great. Let's see if Carl already brought up his Phantom. Reloading his page. Yep, he's going live as well. Oh, only three looks for him. But actually, all his friends now will check this out and will see it. So I'll tell him, let's do a selfie. So this will actually pop up, and even sound is possible. So if they, like their tablets, their iPhones, iPad, they record the sound, so we can hook it up to the sound system, and you will even hear them talking about it. So let's see if, so yeah, Manuel's still flying over beautiful Hamburg. It's a pretty nice spot. So, and this is so easy. So you actually just, with a touch of a button, you go live. It couldn't be easier. I couldn't believe it. When they told me, can we demonstrate that feature? Actually, I didn't test it myself. So I was logging into the DJI Go apps, like, okay, where find it? Ah, it's over there. And like in 1 minute, I was live, and I couldn't believe how easy it is. So this kind of demonstrates, oh, here we see them. Here we see them. And big thanks again to my friends there in Germany. It was kind of a last-minute call that they could realize it. This is kind of showing what those new technologies can enable people, and just be creative and think about what you can do with it. Yeah, it's a very rural area, so LTE is not very fast there. But if you think about the opportunities and possibilities you can do with that, I think it's pretty amazing. And as I said, 25 minutes flight time, so we can watch that for another 20 minutes.
So Ferdinand, quick question about the quality of the film. First of all, how does it work? What sort of camera are we looking through here? What quality does it get through to the live stream? And I heard you say yesterday that you can do 5 kilometers away from where you're standing, navigating the...
So actually, the stream we see from Carl is actually filmed with this drone, with a DJI Phantom 4. It can go up to 5 kilometers with a built-in HD transmission system, which streams 720p to your remote controller, to your iPad. And then you use your LTE or your Wi-Fi connection on your iPad and on your phone to stream the live. So as you connect your phone with a USB connection to the remote controller, you can use either Wi-Fi or your LTE connection to do this live streaming. And it's super easy, super fun. Yeah, more people switch in. So you see, because people are now watching it, so you see more people are checking Facebook and seeing, oh, Carl's leading. It's 17 people watching him. It's pretty funny to make the competition. Yeah, so this is kind of the core technology. You live stream from your drone via HD transmission, built-in HD transmission, and this is something which changed as well. When I started building drones, it was like building drone. You had to be a hobbyist, you had to understand the technology, you had to attach your own camera, you had to build your own gimbal so that the picture is stable, you had to integrate your own downlink system so you could actually see the video. Now you buy something and out of the box, it brings everything with you. So you don't need to tinker, you don't need to solder anymore. It's just out of the box, ready for doing stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ferdinand. That's fantastic.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So Ferdinand, if I could welcome you back to your seats, and then we can just have some closing thoughts. So maybe over to you, Elisha. To sort of marketers, creative people out there, what is your sort of view on getting started in this space and the opportunities in this space?
Well, in some ways, it's so interesting to hear you talk about where that was 2 years ago, because I think specifically for 360, that it's where this was a few years ago. People are still building their own rigs and trying to figure out where they shoot and the role of storytelling. But I think eventually it'll get to a place where it is ubiquitous and it is something people, the devices are things that people have in their house, or they're just more than 20% of the audience is using it. And I guess I would just encourage people to figure out, how do we tell these rich stories, and how do we take the things that we love about film and photography that have over time developed into really powerful social tools, and how do we use 360 for that same purpose? And it seems like the capabilities and opportunities of that is even greater, because you can put it in the middle of the action and really create that immersive environment. So thinking about it beyond, obviously we're sort of in the marketing business, but very much beyond that. And how can you create that empathy across cultures and things like that?
Awesome. And Ferdinand, any final thoughts from you?
I think we have so many cool and easy to use tools at our fingertips now, which empower the creativity of people. So just go out, create, be creative. This is the time. I mean, it's so cool to have the 360 drones. There's so much going on. It's just in our heads what we do with it.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Been a really interesting conversation for me, and thank you very much for joining us, Ferdinand from DJI, and Elisha, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.